Huh. This is quite the interesting predicament I've found myself in. Hello everyone, Professor Scalar here, and welcome to the alternate R1B2 level guide. Just like always, we're going to be starting off with the recommended loadout, and today we have something a little bit special. We are going to be bringing into this level with us a bio tracker and 3 mid to long range sentries, so burst sentries or sniper sentries. The reason for the bio tracker is because in this level, vision is going to be impaired a fair amount. Some of the zones aren't really all that well lit, or they have multiple layers to them, so enemies could be above or below you, which makes it a little bit harder to actually locate exactly where they are. There are going to be some zones with a fair amount of fog in them. We're going to have to deal with alarm doors and scouts. So just a bunch of different factors that make it so having a bio tracker, that way we know where the enemies are located and we can tag them if they're awake and our teammates are fully aware of it all, makes it so that we have a lower chance of making stupid mistakes and just constantly waking up room after room after room. As for the 3 sentries, we're bringing these with us because mines and seafoam aren't really all that useful in this level. You could definitely utilize them just a little bit here and there, but I would rather just rely on RNG and hope for an explosive trip mine or 2 or a seafoam grenade or 2, rather than bring in a whole mine deployer or a seafoam launcher with me, as sniper sentries and burst sentries are really powerful in this level. For every single one of the alarm doors we're going to potentially go through, enemies have to spawn pretty far away from us. So plopping down a sniper sentry in one direction, or maybe 2 burst sentries in one direction, just letting them deal with most of the enemies, will make it so we don't have to shoot nearly as much during the alarms. I've actually had a few runs of this level where I just simply bring in 2 sniper sentries with me and place 1 in each direction that the enemies can come from, and I don't even have to shoot a single thing during the entire alarm. Or if I do have to shoot, it's just maybe 2 or 3 enemies and that's it. So if you're somebody who's not really confident in your aim, or you just can't be bothered to shoot all that much, bring in 2 or maybe even 3 sniper sentries. As long as you position them correctly, they will do wonders for you and your team. But if you don't want to rely purely on the sentries and you want to shoot a little bit here and there as well, bring in some burst sentries with you instead, as they are still going to do a pretty decent amount of damage to the enemies coming after you, but they're not going to kill off nearly as much. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to find a specific HSU and collect a DNA sample from it. And this HSU will always be located either in Zone 20 or Zone 21. And you're going to be starting off inside Zone 16. And after exploring around a little bit in Zone 16, you might notice that something feels a little bit off. You haven't come across a single striker, just simply shooters. And that's actually the theme of this level. Every single zone you go into, the only enemies you can expect to see are going to be shooters, giant shooters, or scouts, and that's it. The only time you'll ever see strikers or giant strikers is if you wake up a scout or you're dealing with an alarm door. But as you go throughout Zone 16, you're going to want to hop on a terminal and query where your HSU is, since that can be in 1 of 2 different zones. And once you know where it's located, you can head to the northern end where you'll find 2 security doors, 1 to Zone 17 and 1 to Zone 19. The security door to Zone 19 though is locked and requires a colored keycard in order to open it up, and that keycard will always be located inside Zone 18. So the only place we can go to is 17, and thankfully that security door is just a full team scan. Upon entering into Zone 17, you're going to be able to find more resources, more shooters, as well as a scout that will be patrolling around in 1 of the 2 rooms. And at the far back end of the second room, you'll be able to find 3 security doors, 1 to Zone 18, 1 to Zone 20, and 1 to Zone 21. So already we can see the security doors that have our HSU in it. But the thing is, both of these security doors are locked and require a colored keycard in order to get into them. And those colored keycards will either be located inside Zone 22 or Zone 23. So what I recommend you do is go to the security door that has your HSU in it, so 20 or 21, and then see what color keycard you need. Then query that color keycard, that way you know whether you need to go to Zone 22 or Zone 23 in order to actually complete your objective. There are a lot of alarm doors in this level, and if you just blindly wander around and you don't check with the terminals, I guarantee you will probably lose those coin flips and go into the wrong zones and waste a lot of resources and time. So let's be smart and use the terminals a bit. But once we know all the information we need to, we can head to the northern end to the security door to Zone 18 and get ready to prepare for that, as that is going to have a Class 2 alarm tied to it. So let's take a look at a map overlay. As you can see with the map, there's only 1 location that enemies can spawn from, and it's pretty far down south away from us. And there is a door right here that we could utilize during this alarm, but since the enemies are spawning pretty far away and it's only a Class 2 alarm, I recommend you just simply leave it open. As for your defenses, just place your sentries out in that room facing down towards south. That way, as enemies are going across that large corridor room, they're getting shot down by them. If you're using multiple sniper sentries, try to position them far away from each other, that way they're not being wasteful and shooting the same enemy over and over again. And if you have burst sentries, you kind of spread them out a bit, or if you want, you could do a firing line with them, as they don't do as much damage per shot, so they aren't really that wasteful even if 2 or 3 of them are shooting at the same target. But spread your sentries out however you see best fit, make sure you leave the door open, and then you can get to work on the scans. Once you deal with every single one of them, you could go out there and just let the sentries deal with the few enemies that are still alive, or you could just pick them up and deal with them yourself, and once they're all dead, you can head north and head into Zone 18. Inside Zone 18, you're going to be able to find more resources, more enemies, as well as that colored key card that will allow you to go into Zone 19, although we're not going to deal with that quite yet. And you'll be able to find 2 more security doors. The security door that leads you to Zone 22, and the security door that leads you to Zone 23. And both of these are in the same room, and both of them have a Class 3 alarm tied to it. So let's take a look at another map overlay, that way we know how to prepare for this. As you can see with this overlay, once again, enemies are going to be spawning pretty far away from us down south, and there are no doors that we could shut, mine, or seafoam. But no worries, we have 3 sentries with us, so this will be pretty easy. I recommend you put your sentries in the previous room down below at the bottom of the ramp or near where the ladder is, and just face it down south, that way as enemies are coming down the ramp, they're going to get shot down by those sentries. You can also have one near you, near that giant hole in the wall if you want to, or you can maybe even place one at the top of the ramp facing into the previous zone. Just spread them out however you see best fit, and once you got the sentry set up, you and your team can get to work on the scans. Once you finish all the scans and you deal with all the enemies and pack up your sentries, you can then head into the zone that has the color keycard you need in it. Inside these zones, things are pretty similar to each other. There's just going to be resources and enemies, nothing really too special I need to take note of. There will be the color keycard you need, as well as potentially the other color keycard, as they both can spawn in the same zone, so make sure you're grabbing the one you actually need. And once you have it, you could just simply leave that zone and head all the way back to Zone 17 and plug it into the security door to Zone 20 or 21, whichever one that has your HSU in it. And at this point, you can do one or two things. You kind of get ready and prepare for the Class 4 alarm that will always be tied to the security door you have to head into to get your HSU, or if you're hurting a little bit on resources, you could head down south a little bit and go to the security door to Zone 19 and plug that keycard in, and then get ready to deal with that Class 2 alarm. In most situations, you honestly won't have to go into Zone 19, since if you've been playing efficiently up to this point, you should have more than enough resources for the rest of the level. But hey, maybe you want to explore, or maybe you just haven't been playing that well, you made a lot of mistakes, and you need more resources to deal with the Class 4 alarm. So let's quickly talk about the Class 2 alarm that is tied to the security door to Zone 19. That way we can actually get in there and grab all the resources from there. As you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 different locations that enemies can spawn from, either way up north or way down south where we spawned into the level from. And we're going to make sure that every single door is kept shut, except for this door right here, as we need to preserve that for a later alarm, and this door right here. Which the reason we're leaving this door open is because we want to funnel enemies through that route, since that will actually make it so it takes longer for them to get to us, as opposed to if they were to break the western door. As for your sentries, you could position them anywhere throughout the room as you want. You could have them in the previous room facing towards the spawn location when you drop down to the level. You can have them facing maybe towards the open door or wherever you see best fit. This is a very quick, easy alarm, and the sentries will do wonders if you at least position them anywhere that isn't facing directly up against the wall. So let the sentries deal with most of the enemies, you get to work on the scans, finish them, and same thing as before. Go out there, deal with any enemies that are still left alive, grab your sentries, and then you can head to Zone 19. In there are going to be a lot of resources for you, but be very careful as there are also going to be a lot of enemies. And this zone does have a fair amount of giant shooters in it, which if you know how to deal with them, they're really not the biggest threat in the world. But even then, you don't want to wake up 20 or even 30 enemies all at once and have them shooting at you, because even someone who's a bit more skilled at the game might have a bit of a difficult time actually dealing with all of them without getting hit left and right. But once you are done in Zone 19, you collect all the resources you want, you can then head back to Zone 17, and at this point you should definitely be ready for the Class 4 alarm you have to deal with. Speaking of which, let's do one last map overlay for this level and explain how you can deal with the Class 4 alarm in order to get into either Zone 20 or Zone 21. As you can see with the map overlay, enemies are going to be spawning very, very far away from you, either to the north or all the way to the south. And at this point, you can finally utilize this door right here if you want to. If you have an explosive mine, I highly recommend you shut that door and mine it, but if you do not have a single explosive mine, then you're better off just simply leaving it open. That way enemies trickle in through the room and not all come in a giant horde, as they'll build up on the door if you do leave it shut. As for your sentries, if you have one sniper sentry facing towards the north on the ramp and one sniper sentry facing towards the south, or if you don't have 2 sniper sentries, just have 1 sniper sentry in one direction and 2 burst sentries in the other, you really should have no problem whatsoever. But once your setup is good, activate the security door, get to work on the scans, finish all 4 sets of them. Once they're all done, deal with any enemy that's still left alive and go out and collect your sentries. Then you could just simply head into the zone that has your HSU in it. And inside Zone 20 or 21, there will be a fair amount of enemies for you, there'll be more resources for you to collect, and I believe there's also usually one scout in both of those zones, so do be a little bit careful of it. But as you go through dealing with the enemies and grabbing resources, you can keep an eye out for your HSU. There will be multiple of them throughout the zone, so just check the ID to see if it's the one you need, or just simply use the terminal in the zone to ping the exact location of the HSU you want, and once you find it, you can activate the full team scan that's tied to it, and once you finish the full team scan, your main objective is completed. And just like it was in A1, an extraction scan is going to appear at the beginning of the level for you that you can use to get out of the level, but of course there is going to be an extraction alarm, and this one's going to be a little bit more difficult. So I recommend that as soon as you finish that full team scan, run as fast as you can all the way back to the beginning of the level. Deal with the enemies. If they spawn in front of you, just simply blast your way through, or if you don't even care to, just simply run right past them. Just make sure you're not standing in place too long and just run as fast as you can all the way down south. Once you make it back to your extraction scan, you can just plop down your sentries and just hold out for a bit. This extraction scan is a little bit on the longer side, but honestly, as long as all 4 of you make it back there alive and your sentries have just a little bit of ammunition in them, you should have no problem whatsoever. And once you get that scan all the way up to 100%, you are done and you have beaten alternate R1B2. And that's all there really is to it. Alternate R1B2 is a level that does a good job at teaching newer players the importance of using terminals to check where you need to go, instead of just blindly wandering around and hoping you happen to stumble upon your destination. Terminals are a very important tool in this game, so having at least a basic understanding of how they operate will greatly increase your chances of survival. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that I was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you want to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join the community I'm building, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links. Among those links being one that will take you to the official GTFO merch store, which I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast. Until next time, make sure you brush up on your terminal skills. You'll definitely need them going deeper down into the complex, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.